Good morning, everyone. This is Kate Golick, and I just wanted to introduce our speaker today. So we will be doing eating balanced and healthy during stressful times, and this will be presented today by Julia Orloff. She is a fourth-year dietetics student at Ohio State University, so we're very excited about this. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat, and we will get them answered for you. All right, Julia.
Thank you so much. Well, hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Like Kate said, my name is Julia Orloff, and I am a fourth-year student at The Ohio State University, and I study dietetics and human nutrition. So today I'm going to talk to you all about eating balanced and healthy during stressful times. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So using food for emotions. Now, this may be a new idea for some of you, but sometimes during difficult emotional times, we can lean to food to comfort ourselves. So some reasons we may feel those difficult emotions may be due to stress, boredom, anxiety, or even sadness. Now, eating to comfort during stress can actually be part of a healthy relationship with food, as long as it doesn't become a habit, and most importantly, if we do it while staying in touch with our satiety levels. So satiety, now that's the idea of being satisfied or satiated. So this means that when you're no longer hungry, your satiety levels are high and you're comfortable with the amount of food that you've eaten. So what I have for you here is a hunger scale. Now this is going to help us be mindful while we're eating. So mindfulness, now that's the idea of being aware of the present moment and what's happening during it. So right now I'm sitting in my upstairs bedroom. Some things I can do to be mindful are notice maybe that there's a slight drizzle outside. It's raining a little bit. Or I'm noticing that I have a basket of laundry right here on my side. So mindfulness is noticing things you may not always take the time to notice. So mindfulness, however, doesn't always have to be something you can directly see or hear in front of you. Mindfulness when it comes to eating could mean being aware of those satiety levels we talked about and noticing both your hunger and your fullness. So when you were a newborn baby, you were really good at this. You cried when you were hungry and you rejected food when you were full. So back to this hunger scale, we have a range from 1 to 10 here. Now 1 and 10, those dark orange levels, those are the extremes of both hunger and fullness. So we want to avoid the extremes. At a level 1, we're starving, we have no energy, we're very weak. That's the hungriest we can ever get. We don't ever want to get to a level 1. And then at a level 10, we're extremely stuffed, we might even feel nauseous. I know when I eat until I'm at a level 10, sometimes I feel like I might even explode. It's that really uncomfortable feeling of being full that we also want to avoid. So what I have circled for you here in the middle, this is our sweet spot, that 4 to 7 range. This is where we want to stay when it comes to both hunger and fullness. So at a level 4, you're hungry, your stomach's growling, you're starting to feel some more intense feelings of hunger. Now at this point, you're in need of food, but it's important to remember that there are other telltale signs of hunger beyond your stomach growling. So for some people, when they're hungry, they get slightly irritable. They're a little angry maybe. Maybe you have a slight headache, maybe some stomach pain. I know when I'm really hungry, I have a difficult time concentrating and I can't remember anything. So at this level, you're hungry, but that's going to look different for everyone. And you're starting to feel just like a little more intensely hungry. So we want to know that if we wait too long, you start to creep into those levels of hunger that really aren't good for us and make us feel bad. So those 3s and 2s and 1s. So if you're at that level 4, you can pop a snack in or get a full meal and help us, stay in that sweet spot range. So at a level 7, you're full, but you're not uncomfortable. You maybe are even able to eat a little bit more, but you know that if you did, you might start to feel too full and get into those 8, 9s, and 10s. So what I want to talk to you about today is what happens when you keep eating, even when you're full and you're at that 7 level. So this may be due to emotional hunger. So we keep eating because of some of those reasons I talked about earlier, that stress, anger, or sadness. So something to do to be mindful of your hunger and fullness is to ask yourself, if my body only needs a certain amount of food to feel satisfied, but I continue to eat even when I'm full, then what other need am I trying to fill with food? It might be an emotional need. You might be trying to fill a need of satisfaction. So maybe you don't like the taste of the food that you ate at dinner, so you want to feel satisfied and you keep eating until you feel, like you like those flavors. You might just be reaching for comfort because you're feeling some stressful things. So if that's the case, we can return to being mindful. And so a tip I have for you is to take the time to sit and eat your food and eat it slowly and really feel your sensations of hunger and fullness. I know when I do that, sometimes I can even feel myself moving from a 4 to a 5 to a 6 and then to a 7. So what I talked about earlier, some of those other reasons you may still eat, even when you're at that 7 level, those may be due to stress. So we've all been going through a time of change and maybe even a decent amount of stress, what with quarantine and everything else happening in the world. It's normal to feel some levels of stress and discomfort. However, there is a difference between a good amount of stress and an unhealthy amount of stress. So that stress we feel when we have a big homework assignment, or the stress mixed with feelings of eagerness and excitement about starting a new grade, those aren't necessarily harmful for us. It's when that stress persists that we start to face some issues. So if you find yourself feeling stressed out every single minute of the day, you can never take your mind off that stress, you might even have a hard time sleeping, that's when it becomes an issue. So this image here shows some of the ways that stress can affect our body. So the first way we have is impaired memory and brain function. So as I said on the last slide, when I'm hungry, I have a difficult time concentrating. The same thing goes for when I'm stressed out. I feel like I have 100 different things going in my brain and I really just can't remember anything. So my brain is just kind of shot at that point when I'm stressed out. And another effect of stress might be difficulty sleeping. So like I said earlier, sometimes your mind feels like it can't just shut off. You have 100 different ideas going on. That would cause some difficulty sleeping. Now, this one here, this is a little bit more of an intense effect of stress on our body. So this is what happens when I talked about you feel stress every day, every second for years on end. So we want to kind of reach out and tackle that stress now so we don't ever have to deal with some serious effects like heart disease. And then we have immune issues. I'll touch back on that one. So one cool thing about this image or this collection of images is that you can find a way for food to help pretty much all of these issues. So for example, the immune issues. If the stress you're feeling is persisting, you can actually weaken your immune system. So what's really cool about food is that you can use it as a medicine. You can eat certain foods to help keep your body healthy and able to fight off diseases. And I'll talk more about that on the next slide. But it's important to remember that the food itself doesn't necessarily heal the stress. It's the food that helps your body mitigate the stress. So food and habits that reduce the effects of stress. These are ways we can use food to help us cope with those difficult feelings. So the first way we have here is listening to our hunger cues. Now we can do that instead of using food as a coping mechanism. So we can prevent overeating and avoid those uncomfortable stomach aches, especially when you're feeling a little stressed out. We don't want to add any more discomfort to those feelings. So the second way I have here is disease-fighting foods. Now that sounds a little crazy, but I talked about it a little bit on the last slide. There are actually foods that can help your body fight against diseases and sicknesses. Now, these are foods like blueberries, carrots, broccoli, avocados, salmon. These foods all provide a bunch of different vitamins and nutrients that your body needs to stay healthy. So it's not just limited to that list though. I like to think about getting in those disease-fighting foods as getting in the rainbow. So all those different foods you're eating when you get that variety of colors, those provide different nutrients, different essential nutrients. So those colorful foods, they have those good vitamins you want in order to keep doing active things like going for bike rides, or maybe once this pandemic's over, playing sports with your friends, or really just having adequate energy levels to stay focused in school and do all the things you want to do. So those vitamins and minerals help keep your body healthy and ready to fight off diseases to its fullest capacity. So another way we can keep our body healthy is eating foods for your gut. Now, again, that sounds kind of silly, but 70 to 80% of our immune system is actually in our gut. So when we talked about those disease-fighting foods, you want to include some that specifically feed your gut and keep your gut happy. So this is food like yogurt or pickles or kombucha, which is a fermented tea and my personal favorite for gut healthy foods. So these foods help keep our immune system functioning at its best. And if your gut wasn't already busy enough, it also makes 90% of your serotonin. And serotonin is also referred to as your happy hormone. So it's made in your gut, but it works in your brain to contribute to those feelings of happiness and well-being. So keeping your gut healthy can actually keep you happy. Now, on the flip side, we also have a stress hormone called cortisol, and cortisol has a harder time making you stressed out when your gut is healthy. So keeping your gut healthy not only helps you better off fight diseases and sicknesses, it also helps keep you happy and reduce those effects of stress. So now I'm going to talk to you about actually creating that balanced plate. So those disease-fighting foods and gut-healthy foods are awesome, but you can't just have a plate of blueberries and avocados every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Even though I love avocados so much, I could probably do it with every meal. But to get balanced, we want to really pay attention to this image here. So I'm sure you've all seen this picture before. It's the MyPlate Guidelines for creating a balanced plate. So here in the United States, we have 5 different food groups. Now this includes fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. So this picture I actually like more because it has a visual of what those food groups can look like. Now this is Canada's Dietary Guidelines. It's just their version of our MyPlate visual, but the message is the same. So you can see here, half of your plate is filled with those fruits and vegetables and all those foods we talked about to keep you healthy. So you can see there's blueberries, broccoli, sweet potatoes, spinach. I'm pretty sure we've got the full rainbow on this plate. Purple cabbage is on there. That's a bonus food because purple is the hardest color, in my opinion, to get into your diet. So if you can find yourself eating some purple cabbage, go you. So this plate, like I said, has a ton of different options for vitamin-rich colors. Now we also have a place for protein, which you can get a bunch of different ways. You don't just have to eat meat to get protein. You can get protein from beans, fish, nuts, and seeds, tofu, or Greek yogurt, which is, again, a bonus food because that's also a gut-healthy food. We have a spot for grains, so this can be brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat pasta, or whole wheat bread. There are a lot of different options for grains, but I recommend opting for whole wheat. So back to the message of creating that balanced plate. Now, balanced could mean a couple different things. So that might mean just focusing on making half of your plate fruits and vegetables, or balanced could also mean just trying to include 3 of those different food groups. So that's what I like to do when I'm creating a balanced plate. I like to focus and make sure I have at least 3 options here. So for example, you might do fruits, vegetable, and protein, or vegetables, protein, and grains. There are a bunch of different ways for you to get in those 3 food groups. So here's some more examples of what you might eat at home, at school, or maybe even out and about when this pandemic is over. So you can see that all of these plates are filled with colors. There's a protein, a grain, a fruit, and a vegetable on every single one of these plates. So when you're creating a balanced plate, though, it's also good to acknowledge that sometimes you aren't going to be able to fit in all 5 of those different food groups. So a great way to kind of mitigate that issue is to use snacks as a way to sneak in those food groups you may be lacking for meals. So of course, we want to make them tasty too. Snacks are also a great way for reducing your chances of getting to that 3 or 2 on that hunger scale. So those orange levels we wanted to avoid. So for an example, when you might want to use a snack would be at breakfast. If you had oatmeal with milk and some berries, you have a grain, a dairy, and a fruit, but you may still be missing a little bit of protein. So you could just grab a hard-boiled egg. Or my personal favorite for getting in a protein-rich snack are these little energy bites here. Now, these are filled with unsweetened peanut butter, oats, and a few chocolate chips to keep them a little bit sweet and tasty. But the key idea here is that they've got that protein punch, which will really keep you fuller for longer. There are also some great prepackaged options. You can find granola bars pretty much anywhere now. You can grab a cheese stick, or my personal favorite are these new nut butter packets. You can get almond butter or peanut butter. That's a great way for getting in some protein. But I think the easiest way to just grab a snack would be to grab just a piece of fruit. Get a banana, an apple. Here we have a pear and a kiwi. You can find fruit at gas stations even. So it's like a really accessible snack for everyone. Now, this snack we have here in the middle is kind of like a superhero snack because it has 3 different food groups. So we have toast for a grain, eggs for a protein, and then tomatoes for a vegetable, which you could also argue is a fruit. But like I said, that's an awesome snack because it's going to keep you full and it hits 3 of those food groups. And then we have yogurt, which is, again, awesome, another superhero snack, because when we talked about those gut healthy foods earlier, this is a great option. So even after all of this, it's good to remember that no one is perfect and all foods fit. So you don't have to stop eating sweet treats or snacks just because they don't fill in those gaps on that MyPlate visual. So I love this picture here. It says, oh, those are dangerous. Now, food isn't dangerous unless it's poisoned. You're allowed to have cookies, cakes, or even French fries. It's part of a balanced diet in moderation. So what's important to remember is that you can eat those sweet foods or other comfort foods with those gut healthy, disease fighting, and nutrient rich foods. So every so often you can have French fries as a side with, let's say, your chicken or bean salad, or maybe a brownie once in a while after dinner, after a balanced dinner of, let's say, like whole wheat pasta and broccoli. So comfort foods can be social or celebratory. This picture I have here is from Father's Day when my dad and I made creme brulee. Now, you're not going to find creme brulee to fit in anywhere on that MyPlate visual, but it was a really great time for me just to cook with my dad. It was stress relieving, it was really fun, and I'm glad that I indulged in that. So you don't have to avoid those foods just because they aren't on that MyPlate visual. Sweet treats, like I said, do fit into a balanced diet in moderation. So just remember that balance is the key word. So I've been talking about food for the past 15 or so minutes now, but I wanted to bring up another idea. Now, I love baking, cooking, or even eating when I'm feeling a little stressed or uneasy. Of course, I'm keeping in mind my hunger and fullness. But another way I like to calm these feelings is finding alternative ways to feel comforted. So these are ways that don't include food. There's so many different ideas for taking your mind off stress or adding a little comfort to your day. So some things I've been loving lately are exercise. I ran cross country all throughout high school and even in college. So I love just like putting my running shoes on and going for a run. That's a great way for me to really mitigate my stress. I've been really crafty lately. I also love making friendship bracelets or tie-dye or just really anything that involves using my hands, painting even. One cool thing about Ohio in the summer is that we have a bunch of different ways or a bunch of different options for fruit picking. So here I went strawberry picking with my family, but I think right now raspberries and blueberries are in season. So you could definitely do that. That's another really fun option. And you can do it while being socially distant, which is great. So of course, though, I do love baking or going for a picnic or just cooking dinner with my family. I want to emphasize that you don't have to avoid food because you might overeat. If food is your passion, like for me, I love food. I'm studying it. It's definitely my passion. You can definitely find a way for it to be a comfort and to be manageable, and you can do it in a healthy way. So don't avoid it just because you're worried about overeating. Now, after this presentation, I'd like for you all to make a SMART goal for yourself based on some of the topics that I talked about. So this goal is going to be different for everyone, but some examples might be focused on listening to your hunger cues or making foods more nutrient dense, maybe filling in your gaps with snacks like yogurt or other gut healthy snacks. So a lot goes into making a SMART goal, but for this one in particular, I just want you guys to focus on being specific. So an example of a specific SMART goal would be, I will build a balanced plate at least once a day for 1 week. So like I said, that's specific. It's really measurable too. So at the end of the week, you can ask yourself, did I build a balanced plate at least once every day? So that's a great example. My personal SMART goal is going to be, this week at lunchtime, I will eat my meal with no screens. Now for me, this means no TV, no YouTube, no Netflix on in the background. For me, this is a way to pay attention to my hunger and be mindful of my body. Sometimes when I eat with those distractions on in the background, I will pass that 7 level and I'll start to get too full where I'm uncomfortable because I'm not paying attention to my body. So this is a great goal that also touches on listening to your hunger cues. So I hope that I've given you guys some ideas for dealing with stress and ways to keep your body and mind healthy. Just remember, if I can leave you with one takeaway, is that it's all about balance, and you are the only one who truly knows what your body feels and needs. So thank you all so much for listening to me today. I hope you all find some comfort in the near future and can make the most of these summer days. So I also want to give a huge thank you to Buckeye Wellness and everyone who put this together. I feel so lucky to be a part of such a cool webinar. This is really fun for me. Now make sure to look out for Olivia Weinberg next week on July 29th, same time as today, 10 to 10:30 a.m. She's going to be talking about resiliency, gratitude, and positivity, a timely trio in the midst of the COVID-19 storm. So she's awesome. She's at OSU as well. She's a nursing student. So definitely look out for that presentation. So thank you again. And I think there's going to be a poll going around here for you guys soon. If you could just take the time to answer that, and then we can get into some Q&As. So
really quick, we'll do a couple questions. Someone asked, how do we get heart disease from stress?
Okay, so there are a couple ways we can get heart disease from stress. So stress actually increases different chemicals in our body, like hormones called cortisol, which I talked about earlier. And that can actually cause long-term inflammation and affect things like your blood pressure. And so that can lead to heart disease over time. And stress, like I said, it affects your body in a bunch of different ways. So even sleep, not getting a lot of sleep, that can also lead to heart disease. So stress is kind of the great pretender. It can act as a bunch of different things and cause a bunch of different issues.
Another question, how much sugar is too much?
So the USDA kind of suggests 25 grams of added sugar is too much sugar. So my advice to you is probably to avoid sugary drinks and sugary snacks. So if you're looking for something sweet, I guess I would probably suggest fruit. Here in the United States, a lot of our foods do have added sugars. So a great way to kind of just mitigate your sugar is to look at the back of the label. And now in the United States, we have added sugars. So I think it's under 12 grams is acceptable for things like granola bars and stuff. So really just being mindful and paying attention, making sure you don't go over that 25 grams.
And one more, if you could put together an ideal plate of food to eat, what would you include?
Okay, so I am actually vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. An ideal plate for me, I really like burrito bowls, if you will. So I'd probably have brown rice for my grain. I'd probably saute up some peppers and kale for my vegetables. I don't do dairy either, so I wouldn't have a dairy on there for me, but you can get calcium from really dark leafy green vegetables. So I'd have that kale on there, which would be a great way for me to get calcium. I would probably do black beans or tofu, and I'd add some spices to them to really flavor them nicely. I would also do guacamole on top, which is a great healthy fat for you, and it's just tasty. So that would be my ideal plate.
Then someone asks, how is the sugar in fruit different than added sugars?
So that's naturally occurring sugar. So added sugars could be like high fructose corn syrup, and that's not naturally occurring. So things like apples, they do have sugar, but they're also filled with fiber. So when you get that natural sugar along with those natural fiber, that's like a great way to kind of have a good combination for something sweet.
Does the sugar in fruit count in the 25 grams?
I wouldn't. That's added sugar. So the sugar in fruit is not added because it's part of the actual fruit itself. So no.
Thanks everyone for joining today.
Thanks, guys.